So in this video, we'll see some exercises on the use of the analysis toolpack in Excel and on the use of the pivot table tool. So let's start with some examples on how we can compute statistics of a series of numbers in Excel using the analysis toolpack. I remind you that if the analysis toolpack is not available, you can activate it going on File, Excel option, Add-ins, Go, and then you activate the analysis toolpack. Be careful because depending on the installation you have of Excel, the name of the toolpack may be different depending on the language. So let's open an Excel document. Data, the data analysis tool should be here on the right hand side of the data menu. If it is not available, File, Option, Add-ins, Excel Add-ins, Go, and then you select. In this case, I have an Italian installation, so the name is the name is strumenti di analisi. The analysis, okay? It may have different names, but that's data analysis, the name of the data analysis toolpack. So let's see this exercise. So we have to open the document laboratory.excelExe10 and we have to consider the sheet probabilities. There we have in column A a series of numbers for a random variable x. So what we have to do, first of all, we have to display a descriptive statistics. And then we want to create an histogram for variable x, so representing the distribution of x. Pay attention to histogram intervals. So we want to specify the bins manually. We do not want to use the default values that the toolpack would use. And then pay attention also to the distance among bars that must be set to 0. So let's open the file laboratory.excelExe10 sheet probabilities. So as said, here in column A, we have a sequence of numbers. So data analysis, descriptive statistics, okay. Input range, select the range of cells where the numbers are located. We want to open it in a new worksheet. You can put it somewhere here in this worksheet, selecting output range, and then here where you want to put it. Summary statistics, okay. So Excel creates another worksheet, sheet 1, where the most relevant statistic properties of the series of numbers we selected are reported. Mean, standard error, median, standard deviation, kurtosis, skewness, and so on. So this tool allows you to immediately analyze the most relevant statistical properties of your data set. Be careful because these numbers here, you see clicking on the cell where the mean, for instance, is located, are actually written in the worksheet. So if you change the numbers in the distribution, these numbers here will not change. Okay, they are manually typed basically in the worksheet. Okay, so if you change the numbers in your range, then you have to recompute the descriptive statistic from scratch. The second part of the exercise, we have to create the histogram. Probabilities. So if you use the histogram tool, it creates bins classes automatically using in order to have them to have a relative uniform distribution of the numbers in those classes. But in this case, we want to do we want to create the bin manually. So we wanted the bins, the classes of our histogram are uniformly distributed. So let's create here in column B bins, and for instance, we can start from -4 with step 1 or step 2, from -4 up to 4. Then data analysis, histogram, okay. Input range is again the range of values of x. A2, A24. Bin range B2, B4, B2, B10, where our bins are. New worksheet, okay. Okay, so this is the result. You see we have our bins here, and then the frequency on the right. More means above of 4, larger than 4. Be careful, so just to remind you that -4, here the value of the bin means that we are evaluating numbers lower or equal than this value and larger than the previous one. So -4 means lower or equal than 4, -4. -3 means between -3 and -4, and so on. So now we can create our histogram. So let's select the range. Column. Okay. So this is our the histogram. However, as reported in the exercise, we have to pay attention because we have to reduce the gap between the histogram. This is because uh, otherwise it may be misleading. You may see empty classes when they are not there. So to do that, right click on the one of the bars, format data series, right click format data series. The format data series menu opens on the right, gap width 0. Okay. So now let's consider the next exercise on pivot table and charts. So pivot table is a nice tool that allows you to analyze very quickly big tables as long as the information in this table is organized properly. So you have each column with an header and each column contains some information, well-organized information. So if you open, for instance, the worksheet pivot of laboratory.excelExe6, so let's take it. Here you see we have a big table with a lot of rows with some data about American voters. So we have the voter ID, parties, age group, blah, blah, blah. So since the data are well organized, using pivot table, we can very quickly perform analysis on how votes, for instance, are distributed among the population and among the parties. So for instance, let's consider exercise number 1. So we have to create in a new sheet a pivot table with age groups as row, parties as columns, and vote counts as a cell. And then we want to build a staked column diagram. So basically in this table, we want to analyze for each age group and for how votes are distributed among parties, or the other way around, for each party, how votes are distributed among age groups. So let's see. So let's select the worksheet. We can select the full worksheet and then Excel will take care of selecting only the rows of interest. Of course, it's more efficient if you select just the area of where the data are located, but in this case it will be very time consuming because I have a lot of rows. So pivot table. See that the range here is shrinked, including only column A to G. New worksheet. I want to put the table in the new worksheet. Okay. So you see now this is the pivot table dialog box. You see on the right, I have all the columns, the headers of the columns. Okay. So in this case, I want to have age group along the rows, parties along the columns, and the count of the votes. So I can drag age group along the rows. So you see I have the age groups, parties along the columns, and then I can drag any of these other columns, because basically I want to count for each entry of my table. I want to count how many occurrences I have that satisfy any couple here of age and party. So I can use the voter, and see that I have count of voters. Okay, so this is the count. If you want to define something different, value field settings, and here you can have average, sum, and so on. And you can decide how to show how you want to show the values. So now here I have no calculation, just showing how many entries I have, but it can be, for instance, a percentage of the grand total for each row. Okay, so let's, for example, select this. Okay, so you see that it is a percentage of the total number of voters. Now I want to off, or for instance, the percentage of the row total. Okay, so for each age group, I see how each age group distributes in the parties. Okay, now this is not part of the exercise, so we go back to no calculation. Okay, note that we have some a blank here and also here. This is because we selected all the rows, and of course there are some empty rows at the end of the table. So I can filter them out, opening the drop-down menu, and then select blank, remove the blank. Okay, you see that I have automatically removed also the other one, although I didn't do it manually. I can do it manually, but it doesn't change because basically these are all the empty lines. So if the age group is empty, it's blank, then also the party is blank. If I want to reselect all, there's the select all button here. Okay. Note here there are filters, so you can add further filters. For instance, last voted, you can add here, select only those who voted last time in 2008. Okay. Or all. And then you can add other entries. For instance, in the rows, you want to add ballot status. Okay, so you see that each group is further split in the ballot status. Okay, but that's not part of the exercise. The exercise instead requires to create a pivot chart. So rather than using traditional standard charts, you have the pivot chart here tool that is directly connected with the pivot table. So allows you to create quick charts quicker, and then they are connected to the table. So if you change how things are displayed in the table, then automatically the 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 diagram changes. So we have to select the staked column. Be careful because you have the 100% stake column and the staked column. Staked column. Okay. So this is our table. So now you can try to solve exercise number 2, which is very similar. And then we see together the solution. So exercise number 2, you have to create again a pivot table starting from the same data set where you have parties as row, ballot status as column, and vote count again as cells. You have to remove the ABT and empty columns, and then you want to build a pie chart for party including all ballot statuses. So first of all, you have to introduce a filter. You create the table, the pie chart, reintroducing all ballot statuses. So try to do the exercise, and then we see the solution. So let's see the solution. It's very similar. Let's go back to our pivot. Sorry. Insert. We have to create another pivot table. We can't, otherwise we lose the previous one. You can use the previous one. Of course, you will lose the table. Okay. So in this case, we want parties as row, ballot status as columns, and again vote counts. Okay. So if you want to remove, as we saw before, first of all, we want to remove the blank lines, and then we want to remove the ABT. So you just click on ABT. Pivot chart, pie chart. And then you see that here we have a filter applied to the ballot status, manual filter. So if we want to show the pie chart including also the ABT, just select ABT here and we modify automatically also the table and the pie chart. Okay, so now to conclude this video, we are gonna see a very interesting exercise which include a little bit of everything on taxes calculation. So what we want to do, given the annual income of a person, we want to compute what is the amount of taxes to be paid by this person, given let's say a simplified version of the taxation scheme that is currently used in Italy. So first of all, the person has to pay 9% of the income for retirement contribution. Then on the remaining gross income, we have these tax rates. So up to 15,000 euros, the rate is 23%. From 15 to 28 is 27. From 28 to 55 is 38. From 55 to 75 is 41. And above 75 is 43 euros. Of course, rates are applied on the amount exceeding the previous threshold. So if the income is 23,000 euros, okay, the taxes to pay are 15,000 times 23% plus 8,000, which is the amount exceeding the 15,000 threshold, multiplied by 27%. So we want to create an Excel document where we have the annual income in A1, and then in column A, some rows below, we have the amount of taxes to be paid. So try to solve this exercise, and then we see together the solution. So let's take our empty document. So let's put here annual income. And let's put some like 30,000 euros. Set to currency. Then we have the retirement. Sorry. This is equal to the annual income multiplied by 9%. Okay. So the taxable income is equal to income minus the retirement. Okay, so on this value here, we have to compute the total tax, okay, which we will put here. So let's see how we can do it. So let's put the threshold, create a table here with thresholds and rates. So let's start with from 0, then 15,000, and the rate is 23%. The first one is just to create a to use automatically all the form, apply the same formula to all the rows. Then we have 28,000, 55,000, 75,000. Set these cells to currency. Then we have 23. %, 38%, 41%, and 43%. Here, since the last threshold is from 75 up, I should put infinity, okay? But I can't, or either I put a very large number, assuming that nobody will earn such an amount, or I can do a trick, so I can put exactly the taxable income here, and I will know that my taxable income will never be larger than the taxable income itself. Okay, so just to create a trick. So now for each threshold here, partial, I can compute the partial tax, let's say, associated for each threshold. So as I report in the exercise, if you are in a given threshold, you have to pay the rate applied to the exceeding amount. So if our income is between 0 and 15,000, we have to pay 23% multiplied by the income. But if our income is 20,000, for instance, here, we have to pay 15,000 multiplied by 23% plus 5,000 multiplied by 27%. If our income is 30, here, we have to pay 15,000 multiplied by 23 plus 13,000 multiplied by 27 plus 2,000 multiplied by 28. So how can we compute this? We can create an if function where basically in each row we evaluate if we are above, if we are within the range. If we are within the range, we multiply the rate by the difference between the income and the lower bound. If we are above the range, we have to take the full range, the full difference between the upper and lower bound. So it's easier to do it in formulas. So let's consider here, let's do it here in row number for the second threshold because it's more clear. So equal if $2, which is my total income, is larger than the lower bound. Okay, it means that I am potentially within the threshold. So what I do, to what amount do I compute the 27% rate? On the minimum between my income and the upper bound minus the lower bound. Okay, so basically if I am above the threshold, so C2 will be larger than E4, I take E4, so 13 multiplied by 27. If I am low, if my income is smaller than 28, then I take my income. If my income is smaller or equal than the lower bound, then I return 0. I don't have to pay any tax because I am in a lower bound. And this is multiplied by the rate. Okay, so let's drag the formula up and let's drag the formula down. Okay, let's set these values to currency. So the total tax that I have to pay is just the sum of these numbers here. Okay, 6,000 euros, 771. So note that our income is 27, our taxable income is 27,300 euros. So I pay the full rate on the first range from 0 to 15. Then I am in the second range from 15 to 28. So all the other ranges are equal to 0. And in this range, I have to pay, you can compute this value. This is 12,300 multiplied by 27%. Okay, let's do it. 3,000 minus 1,500, 15,000, sorry, multiplied by 27%. Okay, so see, we have the same numbers. If we now increase our income, for instance, let's set to 60,000. Okay, you see that now our taxable income is 54,000. So we are in the third series, in the third threshold, where we pay 38%. So you see that we have the first threshold, the tax on the first threshold is still the maximum. The tax on the second threshold is the maximum, and then we have the third threshold. If our income is to 200,000, so we exceeded the 2 million, too much, 200,000. You see that also we have all the thresholds are we have to pay taxes on all the thresholds. There are a variety of ways to solve this problem. You can use an if, so check if you are larger than the lower bound, smaller than the upper bound, and then you can decide what to do. So if you are inside, you take the difference. If you are outside, you take the full range. but that is quite compact, and you see that with a simple compact formula we can compute our taxation. Okay, let's put it to a more 40,000 euros. Save. Okay. Okay, so we have to compute the first point we already did, the amount to pay. Well, we did it. We have to compute the net income after taxes and then the average tax rate for a given income. Okay, and then we want to create a mathematical graph reporting the average tax rate as a function of the annual total income. Then you can try to do it by yourself. We're not going to do it, but that's a good exercise. You can solve the exercise implementing a VBA function where you provide as input the gross income, the thresholds, and tax rates. And then as output, you have the amount to pay. So basically, you have to implement that formula where you're checking which threshold you are using if then else functions. But we're not going to do this. If you want, you can see this exercise together during office hours. So let's complete instead the exercise with Excel. So the net income, average tax rate, and then we want a mathematical graph. Okay, so this is the total tax. So the net income, let's put it here, net income is basically the taxable income minus the total tax. Okay, we can compute the average rate on the taxable income because you see here we have different rates applied based on the thresholds. So we can compute what is the average rate. Okay, what would be a flat rate applied on my income. So to do this, we can compute the total tax divided by the taxable income multiplied by 100, let's say. All right. Set the format to percentage. So see, if I earn 40,000 euros, then the average tax rate is 27.8%, 0.9%. If I earn less, like 20,000, see the tax rate is lower, it's 23%. If I earn more, like 100,000, you see the tax rate becomes 35%. So now how can we create a mathematical graph where we have annual income along the x-axis and average rate along the y-axis? We can use data table. So we'll put here a series of possible incomes with step 10,000 euros. And here, using the results of bit 4, we will evaluate which is the average rate. So let's do it here. Incomes. Okay, and here we have the rates. So equal before. Maybe let's put it this. Let's avoid this because it can create problems to the data table. So let's start from 10,000, 20,000. Let's drag up to 150. Select the range, data, what if analysis, data table. We don't have row input cell, we have the column input cell, which is the annual income. Okay. Okay, now let's set the format to percentage. Home percentage with 2 decimal digits, and let's set it to currency. Now we can simply select the range of cells, insert, chart. Here we have the scatter plot. Remember, the mathematical graphs are scatter plot. Remember the difference between scatter plot and lines. So this is our chart. So you see that we have some points where the trend changes, is where the thresholds are located. So now to make it this a little bit more readable, let's format the y-axis. So I want to zoom between, let's set the bounds from 0.2 to 0.4. So we are zooming a little bit in. Okay. Then I want also to change the x-axis, because that's not really readable, because I have all the, very big numbers. So I change the units, the major units, instead of 20, let's put it to 50,000. Okay. And the maximum will be 150 here. Okay. Okay. So this is our chart, and if you want, you can add labels. So here, add chart element, axis title. This is income, and so on. Okay, you can set up your chart. This is average tax. Okay, so this complete the exercise on tax calculations, and that's all.